This is going to be my personal walkthrough of the Minnesota Capitol. If you would go to the Capitol, generally you'll have a tour guide who will explain things to you. That's fine and dandy, but I didn't believe, I guess you could say, everything my tour guide was saying to me, as I'm looking a little deeper into this symbolism, the allegories, the murals that are put in front of us. So this is going to be my walkthrough of what is hidden and what I see as the mystery religion that is hidden within the Minnesota Capitol. First off, we're going to be looking right at the front entrance and above it there. You can see this is what's called a quadriga. It is also called the progress of the state. Now, what these horses signify is the powers of nature, which would be earth, air, fire, and water. And knowing my basics that I guess I do in witchcraft paganism, this is what first got me interested into what's actually hidden within this because of my, just like I was stating, knowledge of those things. So this is what we're going to be starting out with. And the two women there, they're basically representing industry and agriculture, which is actually Athena and Demeter, which are goddesses of ancient Greece. Now, the man who's holding up the sign there saying Minnesota, he represents Minnesota. That's actually Apollo. Now, Apollo, in the Greek mythology, he's generally seen driving a quadriga, delivering daylight and basically extinguishing darkness. Now, as we get into this also, and inside this, it's almost like a house of illumination, light, bringing forth, I guess, these symbols of what I believe they were trying to pass along as we look at some of the murals as basically Minnesota being a stronger force than the rest of the country, and that would be through enlightenment. Now, as we step inside, what you're going to see here, now, what this is, it looks just like a star. The general tour guide will say, well, those are just M's that go across it. Me, don't think so. What we're looking at, that is the star of Ishtar. Now, Ishtar, this is going to be now bringing us back to the times of basically Babylon. This star here is a symbol of early astronomy. It's also symbolic to the four corners of space, which is north, south, east, and west, and time, which is the two solstices and two equinoxes. Now, okay, who's Ishtar? She's known as a couple of people back in the early Babylonian days, and that would be the Lightbringer, Queen of Heaven, also the Whore of Babylon, and also, as you can see, there's a circle around it, which is also a symbol of the sun god and a symbol of enlightenment. And back in Babylonian days, which gets us totally into this mystery religion, which is basically where it stems from. It was a star cult, basically, for astrology. Here is also a picture of the ancient symbol of Ishtar, just to basically show you the connection as well. Now, as we look straight above, you can see that there is a dozen windows there that is letting in light, representing that enlightenment. Also, you can see a white dot. Now that, even though it looks small, is actually an 8-foot chandelier that hangs down within the dome that can also light up, showing enlightenment around it. Now, this is interesting there, but as we get up to the third floor, and this is not exactly, if you're just walking around up there, you can't see this unless A, you lean over the edge, or B, you get down on your knees by the edge of the railing, and that's how I had to take these pictures. This is the Zodiac, which goes all the way around the inner of the Capitol Dome. Now, what's also relevant here is the Zodiac is also called the Girdle of Ishtar. So that is another connection right there. Now, we're not done yet quite with the connections. This right here, this is also a, as they would like to say, okay, well, Minnesota is the North Star state, but as we see, this star right here also associated within Freemasonry, witchcraft. It's within the circle there, which they have as a wreath. This is a pentacle. Now, the pentacle is also a holy secret symbol for Ishtar, and also represents those 5 elements relating back to those horses, except you have additional element, which is spirit involved. Now, these are just pictures here. They're also around on each side of the dome. Actually, I'm sorry, not of the dome, but basically around on each side of the Capitol. They represent, each season of the year. Now, before we get into other rooms that are within the Capitol, we're just going to cover the 4 main murals that when you're within that rotunda area, basically where the Star of Ishtar is, when you look above, you're able to see these 4 pictures, basically. And this tells a separate story in itself. It's basically where a regular man becomes God. Now, in this first picture here, basically there's a couple of women who are standing saying, if you're reading into the books on the Capitol, who are saying, no, don't go. There's 2 goddesses there, one representing hope, another one wisdom, which would be Olympus and Athena. And they're saying, here's this globe, which if you look back in the times of Greek mythology, that would be also associated with Mithra, which would be this globe standing for basically world domination, and that's what this guy goes out to do. And as you proceed to the next one, you can see where now he's going across the country. And as the books here in the capital state, basically he's ridding the country of uncivilizing features, which is the bear representing savagery, the cougar cowardice, the woman bearing a deadly nightshade plant sin, the man bearing a sprig of stramonium, which is stupidity. So basically all these unclean things or unwanted things, this guy on his way to godhood's getting rid of all these things. As you see then in the third mural, all of a sudden he's lifting up a huge boulder, still with Athena and Olympus right there behind him. As you can see, there's also now a mother and child representing fertility within there, which is huge back in these days of not only before with Babylon, but also back in the Greek mythology. And lastly, he sits on the basically, I guess, the chair there, and he is God. He's basically now ordering the 4 winds there to do his will, hope still sitting at his side. And that's just a story of basically man becoming God. Now we're going to be going into the first room here, and this is the House of Representatives. As you can see, we have another hallowed goddess up there, illumination, enlightenment basically bursting from the seams as she stands triumphantly above the pioneers and the Native Americans. Now, as we actually get closer and we read that there's something written on the wall, what this is saying is the voice of the people is the voice of God. Now, if we know anything about this, basically back into those Babylonian days, as this right here, once again, a symbol of Ishtar, also of Semiramis. Semiramis in these ancient Babylonian times, they go under different names, just as Ishtar is associated with Inanna from Sumeria. She also goes by Semiramis. Semiramis is, I guess, another goddess of freedom and liberty, and they're both interchangeable, and that's one thing you have to understand about this stuff. Now, if you look right under where she's standing, I've found this as just a kind of a weird connection that the states that the Trail of the Pioneer is in the footprints of liberty. Now, Semiramis here, as you can see, is the Statue of Liberty, where she is also having those, basically that sunburst come from her head, and also holding up the torch of enlightenment up. This right here, as you can see, this would be Semiramis. Much easier to look at someone that looks like this. She also has, as you can see, the crown that is above her head than someone like this that is an ancient pagan Babylonian depiction of her there in stone. What's also interesting is she's got the two lions at her feet, with the two owls at her side. When you first walk into this room, if you look directly above you, you get to see, what's that? That is an owl that is standing there. And if you look at her once again, what is right there on her pedestal that she is standing at? But, well, two faces of lions. And these were basically, I guess, connections relating back to Ishtar. Also, you see that she's holding up the eagle there in her scepter. Also, this is a connection back to those Babylonian times, that basically this was a hallowed creature, basically because it could fly so high that they thought that it could look directly into the brightness of the sun without hurting its eyes. Therefore, it symbolizes mental and spiritual enlightenment, which makes another connection there. Now, connecting the next piece of the puzzle here. If we look out, if this is really basically reminiscent of what we see, there's a lot of connections here with these ancient times. And if you look into, there was a lot of work done in Washington, D.C., there was a lot of connections made there with this hidden symbolism, not only within that capital, but also throughout the city, of these things, Freemasons, as well as, the Illuminati. And with what we've seen so far, the Illuminati, Luciferianism, and certain sects of Luciferianism, I should state, Freemasonry, they're all kind of connected. And as we look down, if this is basically the same kind of symbolism as what we would see, let's say, in Washington, D.C., as we're looking down, we should see an obelisk down there. Well, there's something down there, but they decided basically not to go that route. So as we cruise straight down into, once again, the Rotunda area, this is just a little higher view from the second level. Once again, that's the Star of Ishtar. In the further background, you can then see that there's a circle with a dot inside it. Now, what that is, basically, that's the seal of Shamash. That's a sun god symbol. Now, Shamash, at that time, was Ishtar's brother / husband, basically a sun god who, when he died, he basically went to heaven, became Baal, and it gets into all kinds of other Babylonian beliefs that don't need to be talked about, but this is an ancient depiction of him. As we can see, this was the original depictions of what it was supposed to look like outside the entrance of the front of the Capitol, and also just a main view of the Capitol. As you can see, there's an obelisk out there, and from the top picture, you can kind of see how it has that circle, or that like sun wheel, like St. Peter's, out front as well. as well as that Washington, D.C. has basically the long run across, and then it has the obelisk feature of the Washington Monument. Now, where is it? It's not there. What happened is we have this. Now, in the Capitol, it's like a house to goddesses. I swear, because it's just goddess after goddess that's being depicted. This right here is out there where almost that obelisk feature should be located. And what I find interesting about this, here's a saying that is basically in one of the books on the Capitol, the North Star State House. And this is a saying that on the north side facing the Capitol, a reflecting pool holds a fountain in the form of a huge flower. The motor-driven petals can be opened to release a spray of water and to reveal a female figure within the flower. Titled The Promise of Youth, the figure by Alonzo Hauser was often been scorned as irrelevant to veterans' concerns and even obscene. Well, I'll say that it is obscene because I'll tell you basically what this is. That is what we would call a lotus flower. Many within the New Age know what basically a lotus flower is because there's many connections within that, as well as many other connections throughout the world of the lotus flower. In this one, I see this as another reflection that is coming now from Egypt. Like I stated, Ishtar, also known as Inanna, also known as Semiramis. This is Egypt's depiction of this from the mystery religions. Isis, basically she was seen as being born from a lotus flower. Now the lotus flower, these petals, they close and then they open, just like a lotus flower basically comes up from the water and opens during the day, closes at night. And Isis is known by a term, the protector of the dead. And this is something that, if this connection would be true, is pretty sick, because basically this that we're looking at right now in between this lotus flower and the Capitol is a veterans memorial. So in their own twisted mystery religion ways, they are putting Isis there as the protector of the dead. There's no one buried there, but it's obviously a memorial to those men and women. And actually, I don't know if women served in the military those days, to be honest. But the veterans, basically, that gave their lives. And this is a weird connection that's kind of... I don't know how I feel about it. Oh, the whole thing makes me sick, to be honest, just to have all these connections, just to see that this was within our own capital here in Minnesota. This is not only going on in places like New York and Washington, but right here in our state. This state which wanted to be basically this driven passion of the West as they migrated across and wanted to be enlightened and get rid of from the murals within the main rotunda area to drive out that stupidity and all that and become enlightened like gods. And this is the main focus right here, what I just covered of within the state capital of this mystery religion. Now I'll go on to show some of the other, I guess, murals that are within the capital as well, that are showing goddesses and their spirits. Alright, so we are now going to continue on with some of the other murals throughout the capital. These are the main murals. There are about a dozen, I believe, basically half-moon murals throughout as well. I will not be touching on those. But as for the main murals, we're looking at this. This is called Discoverers and Civilizers Led to the Source of the Mississippi. It's the Native American, the Great Spirit of Manitou, Father of Waters, who is the chief god of the Indians. Now, Also continuing on with the spirits, the spirit of discovery, the spirit of civilization. I'm not going to break down who I think these people are just because it is now June and I've decided basically to stop my research so I can enjoy summer. But those that are what they represent. Now, moving on to the next one, this is called the Minnesota Granary of the World. Now, the central figure on a harvest cart full of wheat pulled by two white oxen represents Minnesota. Two-winged females place a crown of victory upon her head, and the spirit of patriotism, which is on the right there, is hovering over the soldiers, representing 1861. 1861 was the beginning of the Civil War. You have the two angels up there placing, of course, go up the main staircase within the Capitol. This one I couldn't really figure out, I guess. The winged central figure is Angel, Madonna, and Thinker all in one. Her pose and expression of face indicate deep study. To her right sits Letters, open book at hand. Law at her left holds the bridle and staff, symbols of her strength that the visitor may have noticed on French's quadriga. I'm familiar, I guess, with Madonna, as generally there's many sculptures out there that talk about Madonna and child and so forth. What that actually stands for, I did not get into that answer. Alright, so now we're going to be looking at the last mural I'm going to be covering here, and this is Three Women with the Flame. Now, Cass Gilbert, which is the main architect, I'll be touching a tad on him here in the coming up, but he himself described this mural to commissioners as a figure of old age, there on the right, bending over and conserving the embers of the fire of knowledge. Now, she passes the flame on to Maturity, who's in the middle, who in turn ignites or lights the torch of youth, illustrating poetically the idea of progress that is supposed to be typical of the West, gaining knowledge from the past and transmitting it to the future. And of course, the torch there representing enlightenment, and as you can see, from the past to the future. And what do we see there with this enlightenment that is coming? And that is a hovering goddess, of course, revealing the main idea that, you know, you shall be as gods, which is, of course, Lucifer's lie back in the Garden of Eden. And finally, we're just going to look at some of the symbolism here. That's also within the Capitol. The first one here is the fleur-de-lis. This relates back to times of Knights Templar. Also, it's associated a lot with France. Of course, we received the Statue of Liberty, which I showed earlier, from France. Also, you can see within this depiction that they have the fleur-de-lis back in Mesopotamia on top of their helmet there. And of course, down in New Orleans, they have the French Corridor, where also they have the New Orleans Saints, of course, with that symbol within or on top of their helmet there. Also, looking at the windows of the Capitol, letting that sunlight in. This is a sign of, well, it's basically a sun symbol or a solar symbol. Looking around at some of the eagles, which I spoke about earlier. The eagles go around the entire Capitol dome. Also are within the Capitol as well a few times. Those represent mental, spiritual enlightenment. The spiral, known across basically every civilization. This is within and outside here. This is actually called the Spiral of Justice. And here you can see that there is pyramids in the back, as well as they're actually using obelisks within this, or basically to use or make this spiral. And then lastly, I'm just going to wrap it up with basically the Capitol Dome. And this Capitol was modeled after St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. And so on top, we should see a cross. Well, they decided not to go that way and just made it a gold globe. So, the question is this: does this represent the sun? After seeing every connection, basically to ancient Babylon, Ishtar, all that, does this represent sun worship? Is this Mithraism, where I talked about the globe from earlier, about the world domination and all this? I believe it does stand for that. I can't confirm it. I don't know. This is my walkthrough of basically the Minnesota Capitol, and seeing the connections I made. I believe this is just a sign of their sun god. And the fact of the matter is this, is that Jesus states that all that came before me are thieves and liars. Now, in church, I don't think that's usually connected with maybe the times of Babylon, or even with Mithra. I mean, you look at Mithra and Jesus. I mean, if you're a pagan out there, you know that there's a ton of connections. And maybe if you're a Christian, you also see this as well. The fact of the matter is, until you get Jesus within you, until you have that presence of God through His Spirit living your life, you have no idea of any kind of connection to a real God. I mean, you might call up your spirits or whatever. I mean, I'm not someone who's going to deny that stuff to happen. I know better. But these gods, goddesses, whatever of Babylon, I mean, you want to look at those times coming before Christians, because Christians weren't called, Christians until 64 AD. That's irrelevant. The promise of our Savior came at Genesis 3:15. Nimrod came Genesis 10. You can even get into Gilgamesh, which gets us a little bit closer to Genesis 3. That was during the flood of Noah. That's Genesis 6. That's where your religion stemmed from. Fallen angels mating with women. So, I'm just stating basically what I know to be true, and what the walkthrough of basically this capital is about. Also, quick wrapping up, Cass Gilbert also went on to be the architect of the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C., as well as Daniel Chester French, who made the Quadraga, which is how I started this video. He went on to make the likeness of Abraham Lincoln at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington. I did confirm also that Cass Gilbert is a Freemason. I did not confirm that with anybody else. It's tricky to find that kind of information, and I just didn't have the time. So anyway, that is my walkthrough. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you don't hate. Thank you much.